Your attention, please. And now, on with the show.
Coming to you from quarantined New York, it's Unger the Radar, starring Randy Unger. Brought to you by Magnitude Jewelry. Add a 2 to match your attitude. Tonight, we're going to be reviewing the new dramas Babyteeth and The Five Bloods with special guest critics Kevin Mosquera and Chris Clemente. And now, here's your host, Randy Unger.
Hey guys, I'm Randy Unger, and this is another edition of Unger the Radar, where we talk all things film. And right now I have with me a wonderful panel of guest critics. As always, we've got Kevin Mosquera. Hello, sir.
How you doing?
And we've got Mr. Chris Clemente. Hello.
How's it going, Randy?
Good, good. Thanks for taking the time today, guys.
Thank you.
Time.
Yeah. So, you know what I like to do. I like to do my pandemic picks, what we're watching this week, what's streaming, what Blu-ray or DVD did you dust off and just threw into the player. Kevin, what are you watching this week?
Well, I think laziness is a factor here. So instead of actually pressing and pushing my remote for a few more clicks to actually stream stuff, I'm going on what's basically on TV. And
Okay.
for whatever reason lately, they've been showing a lot of Fast and Furious, which I'll always sit down and watch.
All right.
And then guilty pleasure, Coyote Ugly. Horrible movie. I'll be the first to say it. Anytime it's on, I'll stand and stare at it. So thank you, E and TNT. You have kept me entertained by not having to make any decisions in life and just sitting and watching mindless entertainment.
Coyote Ugly is celebrating the 20th anniversary this year.
The fact that you even know that is impressive.
and we live in New York, obviously.
Damn.
Kevin, I've only passed by on the street on the outside. Is the inside of Coyote Ugly the same as the outside? Does it match up with the movie?
So interesting thing, Coyote Ugly, really the idea of it is not from Coyote Ugly. It was a bar in the meatpacking district called Hogs and Heifers. And that closed down. It's like, I think, a Samsung or whatever. There is a Coyote Ugly in New York. It is not, if the bar there looked like a dive bar, the actual bar is more of a dive bar. And at least a handful of times I've gone, it's usually empty and full of guys. So not what you're expecting. The magic of Hollywood gives you a whole different perspective.
And what about the sexy dancers on the bar? Is that a real thing?
Sometimes they'll dance. Sometimes they just get rowdy and rambunctious. I mean, the big thing is you'll walk in, their bras all over the place. I mean, It's been years, but that's what they have. It's a thing.
All right. Thank you, TNT. Thank you, E Channel.
E plays it a lot.
Yeah.
John Goodman, though, steals the show.
He's great. He's great in everything, pretty much.
Yes.
The original Coyote Ugly is in Vegas, right?
I don't know if that's the original. I know they have one. They turned into like a small chain.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I went to the one in Vegas, and it was kind of like a dive bar, and it was kind of gritty. Had the bras all over the place, and it was fun. But yeah, not quite like Tara Banks on a bar, but
Or Piper Parabo singing a little karaoke. I mean,
there you go.
I just had a really quick vision of John Goodman dancing on a bar. I don't know why.
Because that's exactly what happens, and that's subtle stripping. Subtle stripping.
Yes, yes. Chris, what are you binging or watching these days, sir?
Yeah, so I've been binging a little show. I'm not sure if anyone has ever heard of it. Game of Thrones.
I have heard of Game of Thrones.
So it's actually a first-time watch for me, and I'm actually at the second to last episode right now.
Cool. Really?
So, yeah.
Wait, when did you start? Is that's like 8 seasons? No.
It is, yeah. Yeah, okay. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Like going in, I didn't know what to expect because it's not really my forte, like fantasy world. Like when people were really into like Lord of the Rings, even like I kind of grew up like Harry Potter-esque like type of stuff. I was never really into it. So, and I'm really not into it when everyone else is into it. So like, when everyone was hyping it up, I was like, whatever, like I'm not gonna see it right now. And then, I've heard some things about the last season. But I'm really enjoying it. Like it was the type of thing where my wife Kathy, she was kind of into it. She was watching it. I'm like, oh, I'll watch it when you watch it. If I'm passing it by, I'll just like catch a couple of minutes of it. And now it's to a point where I'm like, don't watch it unless I'm with you and we're watching it together. So like, I'm really enjoying it right now.
Nice.
And then this week I rewatched Nacho Libre, which was awesome. It has been ages since I watched that, and I think it's one of the best comedies of the last 20 years. So
Yeah, I think you've mentioned it in the past.
Yeah. I don't remember laughing that hard in a comedy. Probably besides what we do in our shadows. Like I love that movie. I love the show too, but the movie has a soft spot in my heart. But Nacho Libre, man, I forget how funny that is. It's such a great comedy.
And my favorite composer, Danny Elfman, did the score to that.
Yeah,
it's a really funky Western vibe to it. So it's a good score.
Yeah.
And also, I'll tell you what I've been binging. Well, I finished binging a few days ago. I'm a little late to the party, but The Mandalorian on Disney Plus.
Oh, love it,
guys! You're familiar? Like you've seen all the episodes. You're up to date.
Yeah. Yes,
so good.
I am not. Yeah, I am not one to watch things when they're current. Hence why I'm late to the game with Game of Thrones. But I was a little late to this one, but. Man, I'm gonna go out and say I think that this is the best piece of Star Wars content since the originals.
Yeah.
And I think it's even a little bit better than the originals because it's more of I know.
No,
it's more of a realistic. It's more of a kind of like a grittier, but kind of like in a very mature setting that is still playing to the fans, still playing to the audience. It has some practical effects which look awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of it. Yeah.
The effects, the visual effects are amazing. ILM, great job. They do everything great with Lucasfilm, and I love the costumes, the production design, the props, the music. Every aspect of this series is phenomenal, and I agree with you, Chris. It's on the same level as Empire and Jedi for sure.
Right, yeah. And I think, I was definitely thinking about you with the theme song and the music. Oh my gosh, I was like, this is Randy's wet dream right here. This is it for him.
the Bill Cosby, the Rocky vibe. It was a blatant, not a ripoff, but it was an homage to the Rocky theme. I love. Yeah.
But it has like some great like Australian, what's it called, didgeridoo. Has like some of that in there, and it's very tribal. I would say very tribal. It's just weird. Like a really cool cast too. Like they're really pulling people from every wit's end, from Nick Nolte to the guy from Game of Thrones who plays the Mandalorian, right?
And you know what? Part of the reason why I started watching was I had to wait for the 7th episode when Giancarlo Esposito showed up. And and this actor, I've been on a huge Spike Lee kick lately, and we're going to be talking Spike Lee a little bit later in the show. But Giancarlo Esposito, whenever this man is on screen, he makes things better. That's basically it, And he was perfect as this imperial, this villain. And I want to see what happens next. I just cannot wait till season 2, and I heard that they greenlit a season 3. And
I think season 2 is October, right? They're still pushing for October. So
see.
What about you, Kevin? You like it? You like Mandalorian?
Yeah, I mean it definitely rejuvenated my appreciation of the franchise. I'll be honest, none of the new ones I was a fan of, with maybe the exception of Rogue One. Certainly, originals hold a place in my heart. The 1, 2, and 3 of the trilogy. Also, wasn't a huge fan. I think they took the best ideas of Star Wars, realized, hey, this world is built, and let's do our own thing, and it worked. They didn't have to
Right.
worry about setting up another film or anything. They're just like,
Right.
which is almost a hidden blessing because I think the rumor was because Solo tanked, this became more broad as just a Mandalorian. I think the rumor was this was supposed to be a Boba Fett thing. And then
Okay.
because they don't have to be honor that,
Yeah.
they get to do a little more of what they want. Excuse me.
Exploring that whole mythology of the Mandalorians and their history, their backstory. I thought going in that this was going to be a Boba Fett story, but it's
Supposed to be.
they're basically the same. They're all pretty much the same. Like they look the same, they act the same, they do the same thing. But I love this character in particular, this bounty hunter. They compared him to like a Clint Eastwood type of character in the westerns, and I totally see that. Like a morally ambiguous hero, like anti-hero, and it just really works. I wouldn't recommend this Star Wars series to kids because I know that a lot of the Star Wars content out there is, made for kids. This is like your Star Wars for your dad, for your parents to watch and enjoy. And
it's on Disney Plus. I'm wondering.
It's not
if it has leeway though, because Disney Plus actually does have rules. I mean, think about if it's too adult, they'll probably slam it on Hulu because now they own controlling interest for that. So I don't know if I'd completely agree with the not for kids thing. I mean, I wouldn't give it to a 3-year-old. If you're like 8, let's face it, an 8-year-old's seen stuff.
Yeah.
What's a blaster, really?
Yeah, like I was 6 years old when I saw Terminator 2, so I turned out okay.
I agree with Kev. I think I think it's a little bit more mature, but I don't think it's as violent than what we make it out in our heads a little bit, So I think, I think like you could show it to an 8-year-old, and I think they would be fine. I wouldn't present it to, a 3-year-old, but I think it's family friendly enough where you can kind of enjoy it and then maybe skip through a couple of scenes. I had no problems with it, so yeah.
This is the way.
Here's the thing. I was watching it while I was taking care of my 7-month old, so like, and he was like just looking at like the screen like, what is this? So
nice. And what? I'll tell you guys something else I was watching these days, this past few weeks. I actually was on the Nostalgia Time with Kid Champagne podcast. It's a new podcast hosted by our wonderful friend and fellow Ghostbuster, Matt Haberman. And on his second episode, we discussed the Sleepaway Camp movie franchise. And I know you guys aren't too familiar with it, but it's basically like a Friday the 13th ripoff, but a little smarter, a little funnier. And I had the privilege and honor of being on Matt's podcast discussing this franchise. And it was just really cool. Just talking about something that I really was not familiar with previously, but I'm glad I'm aware of it now because, guys, the first Sleepaway Camp I'm not going to spoil it at all, but one of the greatest shocking endings ever. And I'm just going to leave it at that. It's fantastic. Go see it. 1983, they made, I think, 4 sequels. And it's a great franchise. It's just a lot of fun. So
it's like that's a good era for like some campy horror. Like I'm a big fan of like Fright Fest, and I could see that kind of in the wheelhouse too. It's been a while since I've seen Sleepaway Camp, but I remember it being fun. Yeah.
I respect the fact you don't want to spoil a 37-year-old movie. Thank you.
Yes. It's that shocking. Trust me, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And also, side note, Angela Springsteen was the killer in the second and third movies. So she's actually the sister of Bruce Springsteen. So
spoil those for me now.
Trust me, the first movie spoiler is a lot more shocking. So,
gotcha.
All right, guys. So let's fast forward 37 years to our first movie review tonight. We've got Babyteeth. I love this title. And it is an Australian dramedy about a young girl who's terminally ill, who meets this bad boy. He's actually a small-time drug dealer, and they hit it off. It's sort of like Romeo and Juliet, love at first sight type of thing. And basically her parents disapprove, but they sort of approved over time. And we're just given a very interesting look at family life and how parents may disapprove of something, and if you go ahead with it, then it's really not that huge of a deal. It's just a very interesting dynamic, and it's very gritty, very raw, very real. And it's got Ben Mendelsohn plays the father. I know, Chris, you're a fan of him. Terrific actor. Yeah, he's been in a lot of great stuff. But yeah, I thought this was a decent film. It was not what I was expecting. It was a little, kind of out of left field. It was a nice little love story. But Kevin, what did you think of Babyteeth?
Oh, we're going to start with me.
That way.
I mean, if you want to start with me, that's fine. I mean, Romeo and Juliet comparison, I think, is a very bold statement. This is a relationship out of convenience. I mean, we're starting with a story that doesn't really give us a story. We kind of had to piece it together by the end. It's really just following a girl who, at first glance, looked to be mentally ill. We find out later there's a terminal illness there. They might be related, may not. We never get the full story about that. There's a guy that's basically using her, and then perhaps he falls in love. He doesn't. I think there's still some gray area for that, and we know the ending is left to our interpretation on what happens to the girl. I mean, what's the journey here, really? I feel like we're just peeking into these people, but to me, nothing changes. There's no big impact. I mean, maybe they have temporary relief, for the fact that she's somewhat happy, but to me, that left me a bad taste, because if the central focus is this relationship, it is all about convenience. I don't see it being something that should be appreciated or looked at or even investigated further. It kind of just went on. I don't think there was a story there. I think we're reaching by even saying that.
And aside from the main character, the girl being sick, terminally ill, she's not exactly a likable character. I don't think any of these characters in this movie, even the parents, are likable. And that kind of makes it difficult to kind of go along with the journey. But I think overall, aesthetically, I think it's a really well-made movie, and the performances are pretty decent, especially from Ben Mendelsohn, as I said. So
I will give you that.
Yeah.
I think performances were great, but really, what is the journey? If somebody can explain it to me, I would like.
Well, we have it right here. No, I'm kidding.
And it's funny because the things that you disliked about the film, I actually quite enjoyed. I was a fan of the film. I don't think it was a huge film. I don't think it was like a film that I would necessarily gush over. But I was very pleased at it. I'm a big fan of the dysfunctional family type of film, and this really falls in that wheelhouse. And I don't think that this is a conventional movie where you see a legit beginning, middle, and end. You don't really see the journey, but instead you really just see the characters for what they are. And to your point, is there a point to that? Should you respect that? I do. I think it's dealing with terminal illness, mental illness, dysfunctional families. I think it deals with the anti-hero, unlikable characters, which is all part of life in one way or the other, to some degree or the other. And I think there's something to be said about that. And I don't think it's really a story piece as much as it is a character piece. And yeah, with the convenience, I think it sucks. It's not a love story. It's not a story that you would find peace with at the end. But at least it's something that you can kind of observe, and you can say, hey, like this is the type of character film, and this is the type that happens to these characters. And whether or not you can take something out of that, I think it's really based off of interpretation. I think Ben Mendelsohn, he's great in whatever he does, and I think his like you mentioned, Randy, every character was not perfect, and every character had some dislikes to them. And I think the relationship between husband and wife, especially the mother, you could tell that she was kind of the spawn child of a lot of issues that were going in that household. I think it was quite interesting to watch her spiral. and to see her projection off of the other characters. So this was a great, I think, just psychology piece, just to observe and kind of just see unwind.
I would have loved
Yeah.
to have seen a movie that just focuses on the parents and try to get into their backstory with like some flashbacks to when they were younger, and try to
Yeah.
flesh out that that storyline. And movies like this, that are more character driven than story driven, for some reason I think they require multiple viewings. So you could really absorb what's happening and kind of over time really get into these characters' heads a little bit more.
Yeah, and
So,
they're typically not crowd pleasers. It's because they kind of require you to be a little bit more analytical, maybe even be a little bit more patient. It allows you to kind of take a step back and observe as opposed to catching everything on screen and making the interpretation right there and then. So I think there's something to be said about that. Like the last, what was it, the film that we saw last time together, Andy, Tomosa, right?
yeah, with
Tommaso?
yeah.
Tommaso, right.
Right.
Same type of, I kind of like that movie a little bit better,
Right.
but it's still same type of concept. Character driven, you're really just following them along, and you're seeing what a day in life of that archetype is. So
Yeah.
I think it's something that's a little bit rarer nowadays. I think it's becoming more common now that Hollywood and the film industry is trying to find creativity in their limitations with COVID. There's a lot of actually one set driven films being made right now because of the environment that we're in. So I think this type of concept of character driven storylines is something that we're going to see more of. So.
Right. And character driven stories such as this, they need to be promoted better, because people don't really want to see movies like this. They just want to see Captain America and Thor beating up aliens. They
Well,
don't-
since I will defend the everyman for a second, then maybe that's because there's can be a good type of character-driven movie, but I like a little story tied with it. I think a perfect example, or something I think it's similar at least to Dysfunctional Family, we're following a little more of a structure, but we're still really seeing, these characters and how they develop over this time. Little Miss Sunshine, there's a little indie darling right there.
I was just thinking that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is, I'm having my cake and I'm eating it too. I'm getting a little
Right.
story. I'm seeing these people not even grow just over time. Maybe one character ends up growing that. And that is a much more pleasurable, much more well-received film than what we have here. Just give me a little more story. That's all I want.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's a perfectly fine criticism, and I would agree to that. Like I said, it's not a movie that I would gush over. It's not necessarily a movie I would recommend to everyone. I think it's worth seeing. But like Kevin, it's funny. I was like, there's Little Miss Sunshine, then there's this, and then it kind of reminded me of another movie that's another extreme called Dogtooth, and that had some horrific elements to that. So here's something in the middle, but yeah, it's not something that I would kind of venture off and say, hey, like everyone has to go see this. I'm glad that I watched it, but ultimately, like you, Kevin, I kind of want to see something with a little bit more storyline, with the same type of effort that those characters are playing. Movies like this, it kind of reminds me of, or I kind of envision the actors being involved, saying, "Hey, I want something a little bit less budgety, less production value. I want something that I can really sink my teeth into and choose some scenery." And I can see Ben Mendelsohn, who's actually doing a lot more indie roles nowadays. I could see him kind of wanting to kind of be the leading man in something like this, as opposed to something bigger and grander.
And actually, Chris, you mentioned something really interesting. That in the age of COVID right now, this is basically as good as it's going to get for fresh content, for fresh filmmaking. Like there's a couple of people in a house just shooting, each other. This would be, we need the more character-driven dramas, and I think this might be the perfect time for these types of movies to be made and to be promoted.
I would say to that comment, Randy, I would say let's wait till next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this year is the year that they should be filming to produce it for next year. So next year, we'll get those answers. I think this year, I think everything's being pushed out. Everything's being pushed out. So we don't know for sure, but there's some It's definitely been tough. I think at this point in the year, you would say, hey, like, these are my favorites of the year. Like, these are my picks. And
Mhm.
I'm still struggling to find, like, maybe two or three.
Yeah.
Trolls World Tour. No kidding.
Well,
Right, Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, there's
There
an
you go.
ongoing
no,
joke that's
I'll
saying,
tell
like, Sonic the Hedgehog is actually the highest grossing film of the year so far, because that was, like, the last movie
that was the
before
last movie.
COVID,
I think
right?
that was the last movie I saw in theaters. I think like right before.
Yeah, and I think it was
Wow.
one of the last ones to fully do its circle in theaters.
You
And it's
paid
like
for Sonic?
Oh no!
Sonic, yeah.
Also, which was pretty
They're
damn.
they're going on and making a sequel now.
Oh
The
wow.
the Invisible Man. Did we review that, Chris? No, I think we did.
Oh, no, I actually saw that on demand though.
Okay.
I saw that.
That
Yeah.
and Sonic. Those were like the two last movies I saw
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
theaters. It's like such a foreign concept right now. A movie theater. Like, I
Mhm.
love. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's weird.
We'll see.
Um,
We'll see if Tenet, brings the theater movie industry back.
I don't know. I mean, I heard that they're doing something in Bayville for 1989's Batman, a drive-in movie opportunity with that. But I think that they're doing like
Drive-ins are big now.
they're doing a
Yeah.
movie and then a meal. So I think that the total cost of the whole thing is like $70, which if you think about it, is
Yeah.
not so bad. But
You nowadays for movies, $70 you can easily spend.
I
without
know,
batting an
right?
eye.
Yeah, and a lot of drive-in movies, they do double features, sometimes triple features. So
Mm.
it's a good game. Yeah, like that. Their drive-ins are trying to like do some really like funky things now. Like they have like drive-in discos where they have a DJ playing music and like you can party in your car. And
Just like
certain filmmakers are doing their premieres in
okay.
drive-ins.
Not dancing like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. All right. Okay, guys. So this film, Babyteeth, see it or skip it. Kevin, I think I know your answer here.
Respectfully say skip it, but I'm going to agree with you and Chris. There are some positives there,
Yes.
but if
Yeah.
you're the type of person like me that needs the story, it's gonna take a while to get through that.
I hear you. No, I respect that. Yeah. I would say see it just because it's something different. Something different without being off the rails. Dull or off the rails. Like just you can't make out what you're seeing. But I think it's worth seeing that character description. And I think it's seeing it for the performance alone. So.
It's a different type of film. It's very interesting to watch. But I also thought it was interesting to see the two young stars, Eliza Scanlon and Toby Wallace. They were pretty good. I mean, I went in looking for
I
Ben
agree.
Mendelsohn, but they were great.
Yeah, I love that beginning scene with them in the train station. I thought that was fantastic. And getting back to Australian cinema, it's a very niche cinema group, but it's worth seeing. I mean, we got Ben Mendelsohn from Australian cinema, and
Mhm.
they take a lot of risks. One film that I absolutely love, it's one of my favorites. Animal Kingdom with Ben Mendelsohn.
Mm.
It's him at his worst, which is him at his greatest. He's just a conniving villain. And if you compare the two pieces, Babyteeth and this, you'll just see a complete transformation. Someone that has a lot of range, and that's just one film from the Australian cinema that I think it's worth seeing. I went through a little time period that I was really into Australian cinema and really into Korean cinema, and we got some really good people from both. So
Yeah,
Ben Mendelsohn being one of them. Yeah.
he's phenomenal. He can do no wrong.
Right.
Yeah, so this is on my radar. I'm gonna watch it again, see if there's something I missed. If maybe I can appreciate it deeper. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it's on demand right now, and if you want to see some strong performances, feel free and just check it out. Okay, guys, so we're gonna take a quick commercial break, but we'll be back with more film reviews right after this.
Under the Radar is brought to you by Magnitude Jewelry. Add a 2 to match your attitude. Patent pending interchange genuine gemstone and crystal EMF protection jewelry. For more information, please visit magnitudejewelry.com/gemgirl or call 718-268-6634.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm your host Randy Unger, and this is another edition of Under the Radar. We talk all things film, and we got through review number 1, guys. How do we feel? Yeah, that's
Doing
great.
I can't believe you said it was a Shakespearean Romeo and Juliet love story.
I didn't say
As a
Shakespeare.
fan of Shakespeare,
I did say, yeah, I did say Shakespearean. But
I knew what you were talking about, man. Star-crossed lovers that weren't supposed to
yes,
find romance and love with each other, but did. I smell you.
Yeah.
I smell
Yeah.
you.
agree to disagree.
not the best movie. Kevin's
I
not a
smell
fan.
you.
Hello. All right, and so now a very different film that we're going to be talking about is called The Five Bloods and is currently on Netflix. It is directed by the great Spike Lee, and it follows 4 African-American Vietnam vets who go back to Vietnam decades later, but because they want to reclaim their gold. Gold that was buried there by their squad leader. Now they've all reunited to dig it up, to find it, and just basically enjoy it in their twilight years. You know, I was never really a huge Spike Lee fan, but in the past month, this director, he is one of the best I think I've ever seen working today. He's just, every movie that I've seen him do, I think the first one I saw was in film class, Do the Right Thing. Powerful film on many levels, fantastic performances, very simple. They shot on like one block in Brooklyn, and it took place over the course of one day. And yeah, he is just, and with Black Klansman 2 years ago, his method of storytelling is just so powerful, so unmatched by any other director out there right now. I really enjoyed The Five Bloods. It was about 2.5 hours long, but it worked. It could have been a little shorter, but it worked. Delroy Lindo is basically the main star here, and he plays the father of a young soldier himself, and they all join together here. And he's suffering from PTSD. He's obviously mentally unhinged, and his performance is it's amazing at how good it was. And I really, really hope he gets an Oscar nomination. I think it's possible. But yeah, this film is just fantastic. Kevin, shall we start with you? What your thoughts? Your Kev thoughts?
Sure, Kev thoughts. Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. What is it on my radar? Kind of. I think there was a lot of good and a lot of not great. I'm not gonna say there was anything bad. Not great. I mean, let's start off with Spike Lee. His primary goal, I think, with a lot of his films, or almost all his films, really is I have a message. I have something I want to convey to the audience. Maybe think about that to you, whether it's that about, racial injustice, maybe a history lesson or equality. These are all powerful messages. And he definitely makes a point of highlighting that throughout the film. I actually was having this discussion with my cousin Philip, and he brings up a good point. I think there were points in this film where he was focused so much on the message that once again, maybe the story took a little bit, went to the wayside. If you look at his filmography, I think Inside Man Black Klansman, even though I know he wrote that. With the exception of Do the Right Thing, I think that one is, to your point, excellent. He does better when it's something that I guess is historical based or somebody else's screenplay. I think when it's, especially now, when it's fully his and it's essentially an original idea, unless somebody wants to tell me that it's loosely based on something, there were points when I think he just hammered in the message too much and forgot about, the movie itself. War scenes, put me out a little bit, though I did like the usage of, the older actors in the flashbacks. I think Boseman usage was a little light. I think he's a great actor, 42. Even Black Panther, the man's got talent. I think there was a little underutilized there. And to your point about Delroy, I mean, if there's nothing else, he took the time, and I'll give Spike Lee all credit for here, because I don't know how many people would do this. His final monologue, or around the end of the movie, it was basically just focused on his face for the most part. Very minimal background. That went on for a few minutes. And to your point, that's the type of stuff that you want for an Oscar, because the emotions were all over the place. But story kind of for me. I mean, we got some strong messages. I will not disagree with that. But I'm a story guy. I need a little more follow through. I think here's a message, here's a topic that we should focus on. Here's some history. All important things to do. But if you throw too much at me, it can be a little overwhelming from a story perspective.
And this movie, this is very character driven, and the story is light. I'll give you that. It's like, they're going for buried treasure. Like, okay, whatever. You just want to find out more about these guys, and you want to see them interact and joke around and make fun of each other, and that's what really drives this movie, is the character relationships, and that's what I really, really loved and took away from this film. Chris, I'm curious what your thoughts were.
Yeah, no, I am actually very much in line with both you guys. I think like a lot of Spike Lee's movies, he is very message driven, and this is clearly another one in his echelon of movies that he's doing that with, if not even more impactful for what's going on today with the protests and everything. It's character driven, but I felt like it was lost in not just messages, but a style that he was trying to portray. And I don't think really you spent that much time with each character to really get a full understanding of what they were going through, because the story was kind of lackluster. I agree. The underlying story of finding buried treasure, I think it kind of lost me a little bit. Yes, there was messages. Yes, there was character driven. And if there was one character piece, one character study, it was the last scene with that monologue. That for me kind of stole the whole show, and I think that was kind of the elevation that I would have liked to see throughout the whole movie, but unfortunately didn't get, because it was so message heavy. But hey, Spike Lee, he's known for that. He definitely has a platform, and I think even more so, I think a movie like this is well deserving to see, because we need those statement films, especially now, especially in a time where people are finding the injustices be exploited, right in front of us. And I think he's doing his thing that only Spike Lee can do. It's not one of my favorite Spike Lee joints. It's not one of my favorite pictures of his. I was a big fan of Black Klansman. I think that kind of did for me what this was trying to do more so with that film than this film. Maybe with a little bit more character here, maybe with a little bit more monologue, but finding that message with the injustice in that film, really played to me more so than this film. And then there's kind of some controversies around this film too. Netflix lowered the budget. It was actually supposed to be a completely different film with Samuel L. Jackson and Denzel Washington and all these bigger high profile names. So, that kind of, knowing that, I'm like, well, is this really a message film that Spike Lee was trying to go for, or was it originally supposed to be a glamorized Hollywood film that he just had to settle on? So, we don't know.
I wasn't aware of that. That's interesting because I'd be curious to see which one of them would have done the monologue then, if that would have even been kept.
And also, Giancarlo Esposito was actually attached originally, but that fell through.
Okay.
And
Your guy.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to go back to Delroy Lindo because his performances was phenomenal. He was actually in Spike Lee's Malcolm X back in 1992, which starred Denzel Washington. I watched that on Netflix a few weeks ago, and that movie really, that's a message-driven film, obviously.
Oh, sure.
But the performances also, they're phenomenal as well. So I think this movie...
You know what? Yeah, and just thinking about it a little bit more, Kevin, you said something profound about Spike Lee's take on original content versus adapted content.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at even Malcolm X for that matter, it's all been adopted. I think it kind of leaves that buffer with him where he can kind of, sink his teeth into someone else's story and get more of that than kind of forcing himself to portray his message, and his goals around the story. I think he does do a better job at it. I never really thought of it as adapted versus original when it comes to him, but you do have a point with his adapted stuff being a little bit on the ball for my money, at least.
With the exception of Do the Right Thing, because I think that was an original
with the exception.
Yeah, that definitely was it. I mean, that made him, and rightfully so.
She's Gotta Have It. I think that was also a Spike Lee joint, an original joint. And that was a pretty decent story as well. I mean, it was his first feature, so it wasn't exactly as polished and well crafted as some of his later works. But it's still, I would recommend that as well. I think that's also on Netflix right now. It's basically about a young woman who's dating 3 men at the same time, and they all basically want her to break up with the other guy. And it's sort of a romantic dramedy, but yeah, Spike Lee, he is, God bless him, he's great. So
catch him at the next Knicks game.
Yeah.
I actually I saw him at a lecture once. I went to one of his lectures. He's
cool.
He has an ego to him, to say the least. He does, but he's very sharp. He knows what he wants. He knows what he wants to portray. He's very much, even seeing him off the camera and speaking candidly in public, he's very much still a very message driven guy, and it's definitely in his psyche to be that type of guy. And that's awesome, all for him. He should be doing that stuff. So
yeah,
not enough people like that. I think for me anyway, cinema, film, it's either you're escaping to a fantasy world and trying to get out of that mindset, or it's showing you realities of the world, and he's definitely that type of director. And it's great to see. He doesn't make enough, and he doesn't have to, but there's directors that do 1 or 2 movies every year. It's clockwork for them. But him, I think you could tell with anything that he does, he wants to have more substance over quantity, and that's him.
You know what? He definitely does transport the viewer to a magical, I wouldn't say magical, but a different place, while at the same time being grounded in reality. And if a filmmaker can do that, can toe that line, like be on that, it's just a very, very thin line, and he really balances it beautifully. So yeah, I hope to see more of his works, past and future. So all right, guys, I wanted to briefly mention that Paramount Pictures has 3 new Blu-ray releases out. They've got the classic John Hughes loves romantic comedy, Pretty in Pink, starring Molly Ringwald, Andrew McCarthy, and John Cryer. It's a classic. Are you guys familiar? Yeah. It's got it's a Brat Pack movie. And real quick, guys, what are some of your Frat Pack favorite films? If you could think of 1 or 2, Kevin.
John. I think Breakfast Club's got to be the quintessential
Yeah.
one. I mean, it's
Yes.
they highlight all the archetypes of people of that age group, and it exists. Whether it's now, whether it's then, those people fit those rubrics to an extent, and it's
Mhm.
nice to see how they, interconnect. I mean, that's, to me, that is probably his most timeless. One could make the argument Pretty in Pink did not age that well. I think it
Yeah.
has been argued.
I'll give you yeah.
Breakfast Club, however, because they just focus more on the character but on the archetype, I think that's something that I could give that to somebody who's a teenager right now, and they could still find something to appreciate from that.
Yeah.
It's definitely a beautiful
Totally.
commentary on social classes in high school.
Mhm.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Also, Ferris Bueller's Day Off is one of my all-time favorites. It's a little out there. It's a little over the top, but it's just a really funny and feel-good film. And aside of Matthew Broderick, that I don't think we have seen since or ever will, because he was so cool in that. Now he always just plays like these nerdy characters. It's sad. I want to see like an adult Ferris. That would be nice. Anyway, I'm ranting. Chris, John Hughes movies, favorites?
Oh, my favorites. Oh man.
Or number one?
Oh, I love Uncle Buck. That's probably my favorite. What else? Uncle Buck's up there. Isn't Transplants and Automobiles? That's John Hughes, right?
He wrote and directed. Yeah.
He wrote. Yeah.
That's
That one's up there.
okay.
I think that's timeless. Up there with not so much with the archetypes, but as far as emotion, that's something that we watch constantly on Thanksgiving or during the Thanksgiving holiday.
And you know what? They never actually show them at the dinner table, eating. It's really just getting to Thanksgiving.
Right.
But it's the only Thanksgiving movie that I can really think of right now off the top of my head.
Right.
And it's
we can also thank John Hughes for my favorite Christmas movie. He didn't direct it, but he wrote it.
Home Alone.
Home Alone. 1 and 2. I think they were. I don't know if the second one was written by John Hughes, but the first one definitely was.
Yep.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah. Classic.
Love Chris Columbus.
We didn't get a cursing Joe Pesci. He silenced Joe Pesci. He censored Joe Pesci.
Yeah, I think he said something where keep saying fridge or frick is refrigerator. Yes, what's that?
How could you silence Joe Pesci? It's crazy.
I don't know.
Because then it wouldn't be PG.
Yeah. Indeed. And that was the same year he won the Oscar for Goodfellas, Best Supporting Actor, which was all cursing.
That's arranged. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. So Pretty in Pink. It's a fun movie. Molly Ringwald does her thing, and we haven't really seen much of her recently. But it's okay.
No.
She did her thing in the '80s, and it was good. All right. And next up in Paramount Pictures filmography, we have here Braveheart is being released in a special 25th anniversary steelbook. It's actually out now. Braveheart at 25, and also Gladiator at 20th anniversary steelbook of that. And I actually watched both of these movies, Braveheart last night, Gladiator right before this show. And these are two fantastic films. They were both, they won Best Picture in their years, 1995 and 2000. And they have great performances by Mel Gibson, who also directed, and also Russell Crowe in Gladiator. I think I'm leaning more towards Gladiator. Gladiators, I think, it's a more entertaining film. And, both have great scores, James Horner and Hans Zimmer, respectively. But, I think Gladiator, it's better directed. It's Ridley Scott, he's a genius behind the camera. And his on a sword and sandals type of movie, this epic action, it really works well. And 20 years later, it holds up. So out of these two movies, guys, do you have special memories with these two epics, Kevin?
I'm going to have to go with lead towards Gladiator. I think to what you said, I think it's more timeless. I think both of these are interesting, or, if it's like you're saying they're re-releasing it, they both have that repeat value. I think always when you do a piece that's set in the past, we can look at it and then, it just ages well accordingly. Something like Pretty in Pink is very much of that time. So sometimes it can be difficult for somebody that's a new audience member. Not to muddy the waters too much, but there's obviously a lot of controversy with Mr. Mel Gibson.
Yeah,
so to avoid some of that, and just frankly, because I think it is a better film. And I mean, you could look this up, but if I look back at these films, I always felt like Braveheart was too long. You could tell me maybe they're around the same time frame, but if I think about Braveheart, I feel like that's a long movie. Gladiator, it was like that was something that was nice, digestible, and I was entertained.
You know why? Because what you saw, you probably saw it in theaters, right?
VHS, man. Come on.
VHS. Okay. Nice.
Mom and Dad weren't paying for me to see that.
The Blu-ray release that I'm talking about today, it's they have both theatrical version and extended cut. And I actually watched the extended cut today, and that clocks in at nearly 3 hours. And the same could be said for Braveheart. I think that's also just under 3 hours as well. So,
wow.
I mean...
Really? But I'm saying Gladiator feels shorter, and you're telling me that might be the way around.
No, because you saw the original version, which was like... I think that might have been just 2 hours and something. But, yeah, Braveheart could have been shorter. I think Gladiator was good as the original cut. But, yeah, they're both great films. There's no denying that. Chris, what do you think of these two films?
Oh man, I love both. To be quite honest, I feel in my head, I feel like they're two different experiences, both dealing with history. But I feel like there's controversy around that. Where Braveheart, even though it might, it's actually a fibbed version of what actually happened to Wallace, the Wallace character, Mel Gibson's character, but that felt more historic, especially that big prepping scene with Mel Gibson getting everyone hyped up, the freedom scene. That's kind of in its own pantheon, icon centered view. But Gladiator, I would have to agree. If I had to sit down and make a choice right now, it would probably be Gladiator, just because it is very epic. The set pieces are very strong. I'm a big fan of Ridley Scott. I think he's, going back and talking about quantity versus quality, he's a director that I believe really does quality every single time. He's a rare director that could produce movies on a regular basis and still bring something to the table. So not just something to the table, but actually something huge to the table. He's awesome. So I would say Gladiator. But
nice.
Yeah, just me personally, Braveheart was like blockbuster night with the family, and then I remember like Gladiator was like going out with my friends to the theaters and watching that.
Nice.
So.
And with Gladiator, Ridley Scott, he's done this for a few of his films. He does a little intro for his extended cuts. And he did the same thing for the Blade Runner release a few years ago. And, for Blade Runner, he was like, this is my cut of film that I liked. The first film was okay. I was happy with it. But the fuller experience is what you're about to enjoy. Okay.
Interesting Ridley Scott you got there.
Thank you. My first Ridley Scott impression.
Randy, when you do your commentaries, you should just pretend to be Ridley Scott.
I have some issues with, I don't know, the actual director. I don't know.
Maybe.
Oh, but thank you, Chris, for mentioning that. I wanted to just tell everybody now that I wanted to start this new experiment in movie-going experiences. We're going to be doing some special commentaries for our favorite films. Basically like Mystery Science Theater 3000. We're going to be just doing an audio commentary, and you just press play on your DVD player or whatever, and we'll sync it up perfectly. We'll do the commentary as the movie plays, and it should be fun. This is a new thing for me and the show, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. Kevin, I think I already have you down for Back to the Future.
Right over your shoulder.
Right here, yes.
Yep.
And Chris, you're obviously invited to.
Can I make a request now?
Oh, please. Sure.
And let's do True Lies.
Oh my God, yes. And Kevin and I actually, when we were kids, we used to play the hell out of that VHS.
One scene. No, just one scene though.
Let's do it then.
All right, so True Lies, Back to the Future. We're taking all requests now, so stay tuned for that. Also, guys, I wanted to mention a friend of the show, John Bartnick. He has a GoFundMe page to raise funds to 3D print PPE equipment, mostly masks, to essential workers. The goal is $1,500, and he's currently at $360. So do your part. Send John an email at nerdasutrahelps@yahoo.com. That's nerdasutra. It's NERDASUTRA helps@yahoo.com. And also Magnitude Jewelry, our wonderful sponsor at the show. With orders of over $75, Magnitude offers free shipping, an N95 mask, and hand sanitizer. So just go to tudegirl.com, that's TUDE girl.com, and check out that special offer. So guys, with just a few minutes left, I was wondering if you had any plugs, anything you want to mention right now? Kevin?
If you need me to join the show, just call me, because that's all that's going on right now during quarantine. So hopefully as things open up, I can advertise something else. But
I was foolishly optimistic, thinking you'd have something that you'd want to plug. So
yep, man.
just
call me.
Just tending bar over at Moe's Tavern. I love it. Yes.
Oh, the can doesn't show. But
no, I don't see it. There it is.
Yes,
perfect. Chris, anything going on?
Some things that I can't talk too much about, but I'm doing a lot of writing nowadays. I'm actually doing sketch comedy writing. I'm doing some classes with that. I'm really falling in love with it. So
oh my God.
Let's see what the creative juices go towards with that. But yeah, just the Foreign Nationals pilot that I'm working on with Foreign Nationals Entertainment. We're making good leeway in trying to promote that and to push that. So let's see how things are going.
Very cool. Well, I'm happy to have you guys on the show anytime. This is great as usual. And I look forward to having you both on for the commentaries. So I think that should be a lot of fun.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right, guys. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much, everyone watching at home and on your devices. I'm your host, Randy Unger. This has been Under the Radar, and I'll see you next time. Take care.